Hello, everybody. This is Terrellius, and I am back with a brand new movie review. Today's movie review is going to be focused on this recently released movie that, for some reason, hasn't gotten like a lot of attention. Like, I haven't seen no kind of like reviews or anything. I think this just was released today or a couple of years, or yeah, I think this was just released today. And the movie itself is called Faceless 2021 version, and I decided to watch it after seeing the poster. And the movie itself, it was meh, it was kind of whatever. As the story itself, it wasn't a bad story. Like, some of the movie, like most of the movie, is not that bad to me at all. I would just say that the plot twists that the movie had kind of ruined it a little bit for me. But here's my review and everything. So the movie is basically about how this man wakes up after receiving face transplant surgery, unaware of what has happened, not knowing anything, doesn't have any recollection of anything in his life, and he tries to figure out what the heck happened and why did this happen to him exactly. And so the movie begins with this one character, George, who goes to this dog fighting ring where a couple of dogs are fighting, and then it cuts to the point where like 2 to 3 goons see him and they chase him out of the building. And George almost escapes, but he gets caught in the crossfire as a dog gets to him and does whatever. And I thought what I thought this movie was going to be about was like all types of like horror and things like that. And in my honest opinion, this movie itself is not even that scary. I would say perhaps maybe the most disturbing scene takes place in the very beginning of the movie, where the surgery part of the movie, where the guy, he is about to have surgery and his face gets cut open and it gets like transplanted and everything. I would have to say that was perhaps the most disturbing part of the movie, as the majority of the movie itself it did have its killings, of course, but not that many. And the way that people died, it wasn't really that graphic at all to me, and that was all. So then the person who gets the surgery, I assume would be the same person, George, and George loses his absolute mind because he realizes that his face has been replaced and everything, and he starts to freak out. But as the time goes on, he eventually gets released from the hospital, and he definitely looks disfigured. Like, his face is completely different. It's like whoever was the donor, it must have had some sort of like severe deformities because his face is really bad. And so George goes back to his home, and he gets a visit from his friend Tom, who decides to help him to get his job back at the bar where Tom owns. And then as the story progresses, I start to see from other people that George was not really a good person, as George did a lot of horrible things to a lot of people, including Tom himself. Thanks to George, Tom says that he is the reason that he can't see his daughter that often, and how he almost lost his bar because of George, and how George basically did just a lot of just grimy things to a lot of people. And George, he doesn't know what to do. He's all confused, like he doesn't remember anything. And then a lady by the name of Sophie becomes his friend, and she tries to help him remember stuff. And as the more that George somewhat remembers what happens, thanks by people telling him exactly like what he did, the more he realizes that something isn't right. And the main reason why those goons were coming after George in the beginning of the movie was because of money. Like, you can't be betting on things though nowadays. You can't be gambling when you don't got the money, because people will take you out just because. And that's what happened. And so we see that George, his family really basically don't care about him, because to them, he's a piece of garbage. He does a lot of horrible things. He has done a lot of grimy things. And the movie itself wasn't bad. I think that the actors itself, they did their job. Like, I didn't think none of them was fake acting. None of them had like acting badly or anything, or cringy worthy like, but they did their job. So I will have to give them props. And the plot twist was really surprising. Well, it was I think it was actually like a couple of like plot twists, with one revealing beforehand that the doctor, who was perhaps best known for like the transplant surgery, he was killed. And Sophie, who becomes George's friend, reveals that she killed him. And it was in self-defense, because she believes that Dr. Klein may have killed her fiance, Ike, who worked as an orderly at the hospital where Dr. Klein was working in. But as the movie progresses, like to the very end, we start to see the story down spiral, I guess, because it turns out that it's not George at all, as there was one patient whose face was all bandaged up, and it was revealed that it was the real George that had all the fake bandages and everything. And the reason why he did all of that was because of him and Dr. Klein's in another orderly's plan. And then when I saw that, I was like, is you serious? Like really? I was confused at first, like, what is this? Like, this movie itself was a little bit confusing at times. Like, I'm not going to say it was hard to keep up, but it was somewhat confusing at times to keep up. But George did not suffer any like huge accidents as assumed in the beginning. He just had like one bad scar that would definitely heal up. So the person that has a different face isn't George. And then when he sees that, he loses his absolute mind. Not like freaking out, but he was like, can't be. So then by the end of the movie, we now see that the face of the patient, who we all thought was George in the beginning, is actually Dr. Klein's face, as he did donate his body to be used for research. But according to Sophie, it's not actually Dr. Klein's body, it's somebody else's. And the person with the new face has Dr. Klein's face. And the reason why his face was deformed was because of Sophie throwing acid at him, because of, like I said before, she was accusing him of killing Ike. As George now remembers that he did work for Dr. Klein, and he used to deliver bodies to him for research purposes, like forcing people to like get their face removed, and have there's all kinds of just like weird stuff, to be honest. And by the end of the movie, freaking the guy with Dr. Klein's face and Sophie, they're on the ground, just, they're not dead, like they're still alive, barely, but the guy realizes that he's going to need a new face. And Sophie tells Dr. Klein that she hates him for killing Eli and all kinds of stuff. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. The movie itself looked promising, but as the movie went on, I just got more disappointed. Like, the plot itself is interesting. Like, it's really interesting. Like, What would you do if you woke up with a different face without your permission? Like, I would be freaking out, to be honest. I would be like freaking the hell out. But as I said, like, the movie looked promising, but as it went on, it started to get disappointing to me, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. And after all that, it fails up to me. And how I would like rate this movie out of like 5 stars. I would probably rate this movie 2 out of 5 stars. Like, it's not awful, but at the same time, it's really not all that good. And that is it for my review. Please subscribe, comment, hit the notification buttons and everything. My next review will most likely be Judas and the Black Messiah, which is coming out on Friday for people who don't know the right connections to people and everything. And until next time, bye-bye.